Ruben, what's up, man? Thanks for joining me here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. It's always a good day when you can kind of mix in marketing and branding and sales all together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, for simple introductions here, Ruben, why don't you go ahead and I'm genuinely curious about your background. You do a lot. You have a strong personal brand. You have a marketing company. Um, just give me the story of Ruben. Like, kind of tell me who you are and what you do, and let everyone know the story of you.
Yeah, so the whole branding and marketing and everything, it's more or less just like an evolution, a progression of the stuff that I've been doing and just not wanting to compete with people anymore because somebody you'll want to sell something for $100 and there's somebody who wants to sell it for $5, right? And like that's the worst thing when you feel like you're competing with that type of person, right? Like, and we saw with a lot of the stuff that we're creating, like logos, websites, and all that stuff. So where I am now is just me constantly progressing to be able to see how can I differentiate myself even more. But I started in manufacturing. I believe I was like 20, 21 years old when I started this manufacturing job. And that came from me just deciding that I didn't want to work retail shops or anything like that. I didn't want to do McDonald's. And then I was a chef for a while and I was like, the hours are horrible. So I landed in an office job, just totally random off of Craigslist. And I got along with the owner. Nobody got along with the owner. Very, very hard person to work with. Very 70s style. Like, you work for me, always be working. It doesn't matter if you're in the office and you're not working, but you're in the office type of thing, right?
Sure.
And so he went through a lot of sales managers, and within like 3 months of being there, just because I was tech support, I pretty much just said yes to like a lot of these things that nobody else wanted to do. It landed me a sales position. And it's sales and manufacturing, it's very business to business and it's distribution, so you sell to the same people over and over. There's no like, hey, I'm going to sell you more this month, and you just overstock them and then you don't get any sales type of thing. So it was very relationship based, and that's where I learned a lot of the tactics that I use in sales and also in marketing and branding. Is that it's very much so like, what else can I kind of show you to keep myself in front of your head, so that way you buy my stuff versus somebody else's stuff, right? And after about like 2 or 3 years, I became the sales manager there. And then I started doing some of their market, even though I wasn't really the technically marketing manager. There
Sure.
was no marketing manager. So we would do email campaigns. We grew the Facebook page from like literally zero. They didn't have one. And we grew it to like 1,200 people in like 3 months. But then we backed off because the owner didn't see any value in it, type of thing, right? But we knew how to do it. We just knew like, hey, you know what? Nobody's doing this. Let's go ahead and attack something that no one's doing. And eventually I just got to a point where the company was sold. And when the company sold, that's where I was like, what am I going to do? And there's a very long story behind this, but I started a company and we went into marketing, and everybody was doing marketing, the SMMA model,
Yeah.
$500 a month, and they'll do everything for you. And they'll, 40 hours a week, you get somebody for $500. I'm like, that's not what I'm doing. So we just transitioned, and now we're where we are, where we're at, which it's the whole branding and that aspect of the marketing side.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, when I think of Ruben, I think of like two pieces. We got like the Ruben Alvarez, right? I know that, in many ways, like you're an influencer on YouTube. You have a big personal brand following, a podcast that you do. Then you have marketing hunters, right? Talk to me about really what you do with marketing hunters, and then essentially what you guys do for your clients. So you're not the $500 a month shop.
Yeah, so marketing hunters is really a support staff for the customer. And I mean that in a way that most companies will come in and say, "Hey, we'll do your social media or whatever," right? But that's pretty much it. Like, we do the social media. If you say, "Hey, you know what? I have no time and I have 5 pictures," we will utilize those 5 pictures to death, and we'll put you in every single scenario. We'll create pieces of content. If you do this interview right now, we'll break it down. We'll like spotlight you in the best places, type of thing. And that's where we really differentiate ourselves, is that we become like the person that you can rely on. Oh, I have time now. Here's 10 new pictures. Awesome. We could really use those, right? I don't have time. Doesn't matter. We're still going to make you look good. And I think that most places, they just want to create the same thing over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. I post it for you, is the type of thing, right? And for me, when I post something and it's bad, I'm like, dude, I feel horrible right now because it's not up to par with what it should be. I understand the what's it called, the social media platforms extremely well. And the Ruben Alvarez, the influencer marketing or whatever actually named it. It's actually called Notorious Branding now, and that's the logo.
Oh, awesome.
But the main difference is that if you want my knowledge, you go to the Notorious Branding. But if you want my knowledge and you want me to help you and guide you through every single step of the way, you go to Marketing Hunters.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I think that's well said. I think the fact that you hone in on branding so much is really critical, especially for anyone in sales listening. When I was coming up in sales, we always talked about the know, like, and trust
Mm-hmm.
strategy. People have to know you, then they have to like you, then they have to trust you, and then that's when business happens. And it's very simple, and it's a sales fundamental, but it's one that's often overlooked. Like, how often, if you're out there in the field selling whatever you're selling, do your prospects actually know who you are? And I
Mm-hmm.
think it comes down to a brand. From a personal brand standpoint, what are some things that you think salespeople in any field, it doesn't matter, can do more of or better of to help them kind of stand out? Like you said, you were sick of competing on price and you wanted people to notice you over others.
Mm-hmm.
What are a few things in the personal branding realm you think a sales pro could really utilize to their advantage?
Completely backwards to what we think is stop
Okay.
trying to sell.
Yep.
Right, and that's completely contrary to what most marketing is. But we're about to see this really big shift where people are despising ads, and the reason being is because Zuckerberg went and took a bunch of ads and he put them on the platform, and then everywhere we look there's an ad. And even the billboards in a lot of the states and cities and countries, they're starting to take them down because they see them as like visual pollution is what they're calling them, right?
Hmm.
So now you have this brand that you're trying to create and have people trust you, but boom, you're hit with, buy my shit, basically, a lot of the times. And it's like, okay, well, I don't trust that, right? Because I'm on social media, I'm on all these platforms to try to get away from that. So the biggest thing that you can do to gain your credibility is to talk about the thing that you're selling, but from a value perspective type of way that doesn't require anyone to do anything.
Hmm.
And I can elaborate on that. So
Yeah.
basically, for me, I made a post today about me in Puerto Vallarta, right? And most people would do this really long tail post, right? I went to Puerto Vallarta, I learned this and blah blah blah, right? My caption was, God, I just had it, but it was a really funny one. It was like, I'm glad money is a tool, so I don't have to be,
Yeah. Gotcha.
right? And so people can relate to that. It's funny, it's witty or whatever. All I want is engagement. That's all I want, because then they're like, oh, that was a good picture. And then it starts like, people are gonna, the moment that somebody comments on your stuff, they kind of endorse you in a way. They go like, okay, this guy's gonna comment back. I'm gonna have to have a small conversation with him, type of thing.
Sure.
And a lot of the times, if you make a post and it's like, okay, comment me below to get started, even if I don't comment me, I feel like you're gonna think that I'm interested in your stuff, and I'm not gonna comment on it, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
so it's this weird thing of like your brand, you don't have to expect anything from it, contrary to the stuff. But what's funny is that when you don't expect anything from it, when you don't have a call to action, when you don't have a lot of these things, your post actually does better and it gets you the impressions and the metrics that you're looking for.
Sure. Yeah,
But
because it's not salesy.
correct. And most business owners, most salespeople don't understand that. And I've lost customers, and I've also had to turn down customers when they go like, okay, can you guarantee me like 10,000 impressions? And I'm like, kind of. And then they're like, okay, cool, but like every other post needs to be. And I'm like, no, no, that's not gonna work. If you want every single one of them to say like share with this and do with this and blah blah blah, they aren't gonna do it. But if you have a piece of content that's like, you explaining what the secret to sales is, and at the bottom you just put, I hope this helps, people are going to comment, every single person, oh wow, this is great, this is amazing, this is exactly what I needed. And that's what you want.
Exactly. I think it's kind of, you're talking about like the serve versus sell mentality
Yeah.
more than anything. Just be a value, be a servant, and then from that, trust is built and business happens. Where do you see? I don't care if it's a salesperson, an entrepreneur, business owners. Where do you see them fail the most when it comes to building out, whether it's their company brand, their personal brand? Like, where do people like absolutely just like effing suck when it comes to building out these brands?
um wow, that's a hard one because there's so many different ways that you can
I'm
go.
sure.
But the biggest thing is you don't put out your best version of you.
Sure.
Okay, so like for me, I was in Puerto Vallarta, right? And I hired a photographer and I took time out of my day, which I didn't do last time, but I was like, I need to do it this time. And I got about 40 like really, really high quality pictures, right? And
Nice.
so when I think of me and I think of like I think highly of myself, I have to, right? But I'm like, if I think like me, I took a trip to Puerto Vallarta. I want people to think like, wow, this place was amazing because it was just a beautiful place. So I'm like, I need somebody who can take those pictures. Most people would be like, this is a beautiful place. I'm going to do it with my phone. I might get my wife to take one picture and that's it. But if you're trying to build a brand, people don't care that you're flexing. Like that's the like we're past the flex, right?
Yeah, got
But
it.
they care how good you can tell the story.
Love that.
So when you go and you say, I'm trying to tell a story right now and I'm stumbling on my words and I go 10 different places and then all of a sudden like you lose my train of thought and I'm drinking whiskey and I'm getting drunk and stuff like you're like, wow, that's a horrible story, dude. Just get to the point.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your brand. If your brand looks sloppy or it looks like you don't care, or it looks like it was an afterthought, then that's where people don't care. And I think that that's the biggest mistake is you have to care more. You have to seem
Hmm.
premium, right? Everybody wants to charge premium prices, but they don't want to do the premium stuff.
Yeah, I think that's well said. You're right. A lot of people want the premium price without that work that kind of backs it up. I think personally, just based on a lot of experience working with small business owners, where a lot of them fall short is they just don't put enough care into their brand equity. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's I just want to get straight to the sale. I
Mm-hmm.
want the end result, but not realizing that the end result that there's a process in between. It's like I compare it to working out a lot of the times. It's like, yeah, we all want the six pack, we all want to lose weight, look sexy, feel sexy, but do you actually want to get up at 5 a.m., hire the personal trainer, go to the gym, and then, oh, yeah, not eat like the Oreos at night,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, we want the result without the process. And when I think of a brand, and I've failed at this many of times, I'm failing at it now in many ways. Is like, okay, we want the exposure, we want the awareness, we want the engagement, but are we investing the time in hiring a photographer? I think that's awesome, man. And when I was looking at a lot of your material before the call here today, I was like, man, he's really got some good photography out there, and it's because you didn't take the get rich quick route. You didn't do the shortcut.
Yeah.
Um,
But
when
see,
it
there is something to it, right? Like the metric that most people say, like, what can I get back out of it? And John Riva says, my sales manager, I don't know if anybody else is gonna know him, but he a lot of the times right now, because he just started with us not too long ago, and like let's say it's a logo comes in, right? And this is more of the sales side, but a logo comes in and people go like, okay, how much right away. And with me, a lot of the times I'll put something out and somebody will say, like, for logo, and they're like, how much? And I'm like, okay, what's this much, right? And then they're like, okay, cool, like let's do it. And with him, they leave him like on red and stuff. And he's like, well, what am I doing wrong? And I'm like, it's because people don't know you for that yet, right? People
sure,
don't know you for that yet. They haven't seen enough of your work. With me, it's gotten to the point where I just post something and they're like, okay, well, I've seen enough of this guy and I trust his work. So what it actually translates to when it comes to like what kind of a return can I see for the branding, it's faster deals.
hmm,
And I never get
I
asked for
love that.
examples. I never get asked for examples. John is sending examples to every single person right now. I'm like, dude, if they've gotten to the point where they're asking you for examples, you went down the wrong way. And I'm like,
Got it.
I never ask for examples. I tell them, here's your price. You tell me if you want to do it, and then they
Sure,
say, let's do it.
sure.
I don't go
Yeah,
down the route of like, tell me about this and tell me about that. I'm just like, hey, you know what? Like, you reached out to me. I understand that. I assume that they want to do the business anyway. I assume that they know enough, and then we do business. No examples.
yeah. Well, and I think it goes to like the brand that you've invested in and built, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really well said. What's the ROI of a good brand? You get deals done faster. And I mean that's incredibly valuable, and that's a unique perspective I've never even thought of. Having a stronger brand, if that gets a deal done faster, is it worth it? Hell yeah, that's worth it.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. Ruben, kind of like just you know outside of the sales talk, I want to learn more about a few different things you have going on here. Um, you recently, it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys kind of just started hosting these events. I believe it's called Thrive in Your City.
Yeah.
talk to me about this, man. I think what you're doing for like the entrepreneur world right now is really cool. I know you got some things going down on or down in El Paso. We were talking about how that's kind of an underrated market before this call. Just talk to me about Thrive in your city and just kind of all this other stuff you have going on.
Yeah, so there's this strange thing that kind of happens is people tell me about their ideas, and then after a while I'm like, whatever, let's do it. And then I end up being the money behind the idea, and somebody just gave me the idea, and then we kind of run with it, right? So I somebody was like, hey, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, there's this lady and she's throwing events, and she gets like 100 people to show up every single time. We should do an event, and we should do it in El Paso. And I'm like, no, I don't know enough people in El Paso, right? So he keeps telling me, and eventually I'm like, okay, we got you, we got John Rivas because he had just moved back, my sales manager. We knew Angel, and then I was like, but between those people, I think we can make something happen, right? So our goal was to get like 70 people there, so we shot for 50, and no, sorry, it was 50, and we shot for 70, right? And I was like, if 70 people register, then 50 people will show up, type of thing. And so we started pushing really hard. And then we got other people from El Paso to help us out with the help of Angel. Angel started introducing us people. I knew that I wanted it to be all local speakers, right? And this is something that most people don't think. They think, oh, let's just get Gary Vee or let's get Grant Cardone and then people will come. And my idea is like, dude, let's just get all the people from El Paso to come. Like
Sure.
that's the main
Get
thing.
their
Like,
network.
yeah, I don't want like 20 people to show up from like different places. It doesn't make sense. Why don't we just get the people there? Like, we'll see if we have something going. So at one point, we had made so many connections that we had, I think, 14 people post the event in one day, like 14 different, just boom, 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 boom. And at the end of it, we had gone to 80 like the Friday before the event, and it was on Thursday or Friday. And I was like, dude, that's it. And then we had to open up space and we had to check with the requirements and everything. And so we opened it up to 90. And then the day of the event, it was like, dude, we need to get 2 more people in. And we ended up at like 98 people. And we were just completely sold out. We were freaking out because we're like, dude, how are we going to sit these people and stuff? And it just showed that all it is just thinking the correct way, not overcomplicating it, not thinking like, okay, we need this or we need that. Let's just be very linear. And we did the same thing for this other one. We have another networking event this Thursday, and we was just networking, pure networking. And then John Rivas is like, dude, you need to have panelists. And I'm like, stop. Like, it's a networking event. And so he talks to me again, talks. So I was like, fine, we have panelists now, right? So we have networking, panelists, networking. But what ended up happening is we got so many people because of the panelists, and now we're at like 100 registered people. And I'm having the same problem. I'm like, how are we going to sit all these people?
Yeah.
um, but it's just one of those things that I truly just think that I can, and that I have the right people there, and then it happens and we do.
I think it's awesome, man. So, like, what's the end goal here? Are you guys gonna like go to different cities, or just kind of build like a networking conglomerate down there in like El Paso? What's kind of
It's
the
gonna,
five
yeah,
steps down the road?
it's gonna start in El Paso. The main thing that I realized about any brand, and most people, they might not like this, right? Um, when you start a brand, it doesn't matter who you are. If you want to make it big, you sell out first, and then you basically do whatever you want to do. And I know that even with people today, I was telling them like it's very black and white with me, and they were like, for the networking event, we should have two different kind of badges, right? And they're like, one for the people that matter, one for the. And I'm like, okay, so you're basically saying, these people are shit and these people aren't. So with the word sellout, it's not that I'm saying like you necessarily have to sell your soul, but you have to go mainstream with what you do. You have to become known. And so my plan for El Paso is I believe that there's a lot of good people down there. I believe that there's a misconception and people believe what I've heard, and anybody from El Paso, I'm sorry if you're, but what I've heard from every single person from El Paso, everybody here is cheap. Everybody here holds on to their network. We left because people don't pay, all this stuff, right? I'm like, why did 100 people come out? When we charged on the first one, we did $25. People were like, you shouldn't charge. Nobody's going to show up. Nobody would pay. Nobody would pay. Every single person paid. And I'm like, I don't believe none of this. I believe that people are so toxic down there against each other that all they need is somebody to come in there and say, I love every single one of you, and basically show them something different. And so that's my plan, is that literally I'm going to go down there. I have very high expectations for everybody. I don't
Cool.
care. Like, on my YouTube channel, people are mean to me, and I respond with positivity. So if
Sure.
somebody's mean to me, I'm like, whatever, dude, we don't have to do business. Let's go get a beer anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's my plan, is to basically I feel that it's going to be very easy to become known in a city where people are very skeptical of each other, because I know that I'm a good person at heart and I have very, very high expectations for people and I want to work with people.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. I mean, if you surround yourself with people that have like-minded ambitions than you, things happen. You guys might have, charged for the event down in El Paso and, $25 to get in. Anyone will pay that. I guarantee you money came from that room though. And what I
Oh
mean by
yeah.
that is like deals were done.
Mm-hmm.
People met each other and things have happened since that event you threw, and it was way incredibly valuable because of the deals that came about from that event. So I think that's awesome, man. Definitely plan an event here in Denver, man. We'll pimp it out here for sure. All right, man. Last question for you. We do this every show. Probably my new favorite thing: black box or white box. What we do is we pull a card from it. I've never looked at any of these questions, and it asks you a random question, and yeah, it's really fun. So, black box or white box?
We'll do the black one.
All right. What would your best day ever be?
It's a difficult question, because I've been realizing more and more that the more I live in the future, the faster the time seems to go.
No doubt.
So, and especially because I just turned 30 on the 22nd of September, which was a few days ago. 28 to 30 went just stupid fast. And the reason that it did is because my main goal was to become a millionaire by age 30. And once I actually realized what it took, I'm like, there's no way. Like, I just, especially during COVID, I can't meet enough people quick enough and everything. So I just started
Sure.
doing my best. But the time moved so fast. So now the perfect day is pretty much just time with my family, right? Like, we went to Puerto Vallarta and we were there for 7 days, 6 nights or whatever. And it was fun. It was incredibly fun. And I was actually able to be there a lot of the time in the moment. And
Yeah, totally.
so that's just the perfect day, is just being able to really think about what I'm doing right now and not focus so much on the future, even though I know the future is coming. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
have plans and goals and stuff, but just being able to live in that moment. So if anybody's looking for what that means for them, what it means is just basically your future is going to catch up with you, right? Like, I even made a post about this. I think it was yesterday. The future you and the current you are the same person, right? We
Yeah,
see this
totally.
person and it's like, oh, okay, well, that's, I wish I was that person. It's like, you're an idiot. You are that person.
Yep.
You know? So
Exactly. And your life can change so quickly too, man. Like, uh, I relate to that, man. Like, living in the future and then letting kind of the moment pass you by. You're a father, right? I'm a father, and I look at my kids, and I'm always worried about business and growth and all this stuff. And then it's like I look up, and my oldest son all of a sudden is 4, and
mhm.
I'm like, shit, man. I remember when he was born, and I I was trying to make my first business. It was on life support, and now fast forward just 4 or 5 years, and sold a business, and have a second kid. It's like the future does catch up with you, or
Yeah.
you catch up with it. So I think that's well said, man. Hey, anyone listening, where can they find you, Ruben?
I believe every single one of them is the same for all social media. It's I am Ruben Alvarez. And
Awesome.
then if they want to see my website, I was very lucky and just fortunate and obsessive, and I ended up getting rubenalvarez.com.
Did you have to pay for that domain?
So what's funny is it's an $8,000 domain that somebody forgot to pay for or something, or Ruben Alvarez died or something. I got it at a GoDaddy auction for $13.
No, hey, there you go, man. I love that. I'm a domain hoarder, man. So that's funny. I've sold a few, and it is a good domain. We'll link it up in the show notes. Ruben, I really appreciate it, bro. I think
Absolutely.
you're hell of a thought leader when it comes to just marketing and sales, especially branding. And I think my biggest takeaway is like, hey, what's the ROI of a good brand? Deals get done faster, and that's something that I think goes unsaid a lot. I hadn't even thought about it. So, hey, I look forward to doing this again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on.